Hey, Maria. Welcome to another episode of Just a Spanish Phrase.
Hello, Renzo.
Before we jump into this phrase and its origin, its fascinating origin, I have a really good one for you today. But I have to ask you, do you ever get bored?
Luckily enough, I don't.
How? What's your secret?
I'm lucky because I love books. I think it was Anais Nin who said, the person who loves books is never alone. I can go have a dinner with my favorite author. I can invite my favorite author to my house. So I never feel lonely. I never get bored. And I have a huge pile of books to read. So it's always, I wake up in the morning knowing that there's always more to discover.
Oh, that's wonderful. And actually, it really speaks to me because so we tell our son that he's not allowed to get bored. There's no such thing as getting bored because we have lots of books in the house. So if you're ever bored, just go pick a book.
But boredom is a topic that fascinates me. Some philosophers say, like Schopenhauer, for example, says life is a pendulum between boredom, when you have what you have been looking for and it doesn't fulfill you, and pain, when suddenly you realize you want something more and then you fight for that and then you get it and then you go back to boredom. But other philosophers say boredom is actually good. It's part of creativity. It's part of life. You need to get bored to come up with great ideas, to come up with solutions. So I don't know. Where do you stand? Do you get bored?
I think I'm more on that end of the spectrum. I think there is a natural state of boredom, and it's not a boredom where like I'm complaining about, oh, I have nothing to do. That's not that's what my son will say sometimes. I'm like, nope, that's not true. Here's a book. But rather what you said about how sometimes you maybe like reach a point of satisfaction, of completion, and then that boredom, in air quotes, it opens up the next desire for creativity, for finding something new, for finding the spark that's going to lead to the next thing.
Actually, one of my favorite essays of all time is by the Greek Stoic philosopher Seneca, and it's called The Tranquility of the Spirit or Tranquility of the Mind, depending on the translation. And he says boredom is jumping from one activity to the other without really finding yourself in any of those activities.
Oh, I love that. Maria, you always have the best quotes. But I have to interrupt because we have to get back to the phrase. This is Just a Spanish Phrase, of course, the podcast where we jump into Spanish idioms, idiomatic expressions, and explore their origin and how they're used in everyday conversation. And because you mentioned Greek philosophy, let's introduce the phrase, which I'm sure you've heard, aburrirse como una ostra.
Of course, I've heard that phrase. How would you translate that? To get bored like an oyster?
Like an oyster. That's right. That's what we're saying. To get bored like an oyster. Except, and here's where the origin of the expression
Oysters
comes
don't
in.
get bored.
Oysters don't get bored, of course. Well, there's no scientific proof anyway that oysters can get bored.
And before you go back, I don't know why it made me think of feliz como una lombriz, happy as a
worm.
As a worm.
As an earthworm. Yeah.
I wonder why we use expressions with.
Ooh, I don't know the origin of that one. Let's save that one for a future episode.
So tell me about aburrirse como una ostra.
Exacto. Estoy aburrido como una ostra. To get bored, sorry, you were saying.
To get bored like an oyster.
That's right. Well, guess what?
What?
We're not talking about oysters at all.
What? Wait.
Ostra is oyster.
Uh-huh.
That's right. That's the name of the animal, the bivalve with a shelf. Delicious, by the way. I love oysters. But that's not what the expression is saying at all. In fact, ostra is an abbreviation of another word, an ancient word from ancient Greece, ostrakon.
You got me there. I have no idea.
Exactly. The expression, aburrirse como la ostra, is not making a reference at all to the animal, the oyster. It is a reference to the ancient Greek practice of ostracizing. Ostracismo in español, and we shortened it to ostra. Now, what was this? In ancient Greece, a city votes to ostracize or exile a person. So say someone maybe like a traveler, someone who has come to the city and caused some trouble, committed some crimes.
Like
They're not
Socrates, they
he
wanted to ostracize him. Like he was condemned for
Oh.
being a revolutionary thinker,
Mhm.
and his followers say, "You need to get out, like escape the city." And he's like, "No, I stand by my principles," and that's why he decided to drink the poison and die.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well,
he was going to be ostracized.
before yes, before that extreme decision to end his life, the people of the city, whatever city in ancient Greece it may have been, would probably have voted. And everybody gets together and votes on whether or not this person, in this case Socrates, but anybody who they want to exile, should be, shut out from the city, persona non grata,
Mhm.
for a set period of time. It could be a few months, it could be several years. How do they do this? They write the name of the person on a broken piece of pottery. So in ancient Greece, think of, there's no scrap paper. Instead of scrap paper, they had scrap pottery. And these little pieces, these shards of pottery, were called ostrakon.
Wow.
Yes, I know. When I found this out, I love this origin. So people would write, a secret ballot, the name of the person that they wanted to exile, and I guess probably yes or no, and then submit this secret ballot, this piece of pottery, this ostrakon, and then they would tally the votes and decide whether the person would be ostracized, exiled from the city.
So when you are bored, like an ostra, is means you're bored, like an exiled person.
Yes, like an exile, someone who, well, I mean, think about it. Even if you, okay, I know we were talking about having books, but imagine, you're exiled from the city and now you're on your own. You don't have access to the library
Or you don't have access to your community. But talking
in your
about that, I've
community.
been researching a lot about immigration. I am an immigrant
Mhm.
myself. And I found out, I don't know if I already mentioned this, but a fascinating data that if you put together all the immigrants in the world, we would be the fourth most populated nation on earth. After
Wow.
China, India, and the United States, the fourth most population nation is the nation of immigrants.
Wow. And you think about it that way, then it's not. Sometimes immigration can be seen or feel like a very lonely process, but when you put it that way, that's a huge community.
It is a huge community. It is difficult no matter what,
Yes.
but at the same time, it has its advantages.
Mhm.
I think the more the better societies are, the more diverse societies, because you bring a richness in culture, in gastronomy, in thought, in music, in arts. So I think actually, if you live in a country built by immigrants, it's should be a richer country, so you should be less bored.
Yes. That goes back to the expression, the idea, the very concept of ostracism, of feeling ostracized, feeling separated, alone, the tedium of that, the boredom of that. The exact opposite of that is finding community, finding belonging. And like you said, diverse communities, you can't get bored in something like that.
Although Bukowski, another a
Oh,
great writer, and
yes.
I would say philosopher, he said he gets more bored among big crowds than alone.
Well, I I understand that though, because big crowds are not the same as community.
Yes, you're right.
There's an anonymity in big crowds. There's honestly like there can be an isolation in big crowds unless you all have, you know, something in common, like cheering at a concert or a sporting event, maybe.
Still, you can still feel lonely. But as you can tell, boredom is a subject that fascinates me. So hopefully we'll talk about it more in future episodes. I think we're running out of time.
Yes, for this episode. But if you liked this episode and other episodes you've heard so far and would like to continue listening to more Just a Spanish Phrase, we do have a little favor to ask of you, our listeners. Will you please
Rate, share,
And,
Like.
and if you're feeling inspired, leave a comment anywhere you listen to this podcast, where it's Spotify, Apple Music, or iHeart.
And share it with your friends.
Yes,
And
tell your
talk about
friends.
boredom. Do you get bored?
That's a very good question. Let us know in the comments.
Bye-bye. I hope you don't get aburridos como una ostra. Adiós.
Bye.